Greetings and salutations in our distance. This is Iwofotek, and let's talk about an old book. But first and foremost, before I go into that, I will explain quickly. And first and foremost, I am been a fan of Warhammer lore for a decade, roughly. Okay, a decade plus. It's hard to peg exactly when I truly got into the lore of Warhammer. However, I never played Warhammer 40k or Age of Sigmar or anything like that. But I've decided in the past few years I definitely want to get into playing Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar and so forth. But just before the COOF lockdowns, before 9th edition, I decided to buy. I was flipping around eBay. I saw this delightful book, the core rule book for 8th edition Warhammer 40k. At the time, they recently announced Warhammer 9th edition. Yes, I do believe. And this book came up really cheap on eBay. And I said, if anything, I'm going to buy this book just so I can read through it and enjoy what I can read out of this and make my decision whether I truly want to decide to get into Warhammer based on my research, watching various other Warhammer YouTubers such as Auspex Tactics, Tactical Tortoise. There's a whole bunch others. There's also Hey Woe, which also covers a lot of Age of Sigmar, and Wargrove of Woe, which also covers Age of Sigmar, and a few others. I subscribe to like 20 or 30 Warhammer 40k channels, and about another 10 or 15 Warhammer Age of Sigmar channels. Right around that time, a few years before that, actually. I've been following various like Luton for many years. But anyways, I went from like subscribing to like 5 or 6 to subscribing to like 20 or 30 Warhammer 40k channels plus another 10 to 20-ish Age of Sigmar channels. Some of them have come and gone from both categories. But anyways, I went and I picked this book up off of eBay. It is actually a beautiful book. It has a beautiful ribbon, Mark. Beautiful black artwork, black and white. Some Chaos Fun in there. You got a Marine and a Chaos Marine kind of merged together in the front image. The Dead Emperor, the Emperor of Mankind. The basic treatment, the air, the flavor of Warhammer 40k universe right here in this little section right here. It's just the taste. A big, beautiful image of combat between Chaos and the Space Marines, specifically the Death Guard and the Ultramarines. For Warhammer 8th edition, the Ultramarines and the Death Guard were the starting sets. Yet again, another example of Ultramarine versus Death Guard. Kind of warped how mutilated the Death Guard. You know, it's one of those things. He's like, you have to stop and like ask, "Hey, you are now a bizarre, twisted monster. What has happened to you, brother?" And of course, their mind is warped by the warp, and they probably don't register it as a horrible thing. It's a blessed gift that they are filled with disease, and yet they do not die from it. They are empowered by it. But anyways, beautiful displays. I mean, like, they really want to show you off. You got a Death Guard display here. You got You got, I had to look at that closer. This is Ultramarines. That's Blood Angels, and then this one up here is Gene Stealer Cults right up here. So they give you a beautiful range of options. I also, in a previous video, I showed off the Getting Started book for 8th edition, which I also picked up. And then there's a little section on describing painting, the painting part of the hobby. The display part, you show off your stuff. You just set it up and show it off and have fun and talk with people. The Dark Millennium section here goes deeper into the lore of the 40K universe. Gives you a rough diagram of all the institutions of the Imperium and their rough relationship of they have in circles to each other, with description here. This book is actually, if you really want to check out Warhammer 40K but don't want to spend a ton of money, first option is go to the YouTube channels I mentioned before, watch them, look at their channel lists, find other channels of 40K or Age of Sigmar and such forth, or other war games like Frostgrave or Stargrave and so forth, and subscribe to those, and make your decision whether you want to invest in starting the end of it. If you choose 40K and you have money to burn and you just want a bit of more lore flavor and a book, I'd probably suggest going with the Getting Started books, or maybe picking this book up if you're not 100% sure after watching tons of channels. Say you're say 50% sure. This book is typically going to be dirt cheap on eBay or Amazon. The 8th edition book, which is no longer a major book. However, a lot of factions still are still in their 8th edition codexes, so this is not a bad book to have. This is just not the main book you want to have. But you pick up one of these books, you can flip through them, have fun. There's a streamer. I actually was reading through this once before, and that just happens to be a spot where my previous reading through I got to, and I stopped. So you keep going through, you have just tons of lore. The first half of this book is just going over lore, getting you into the mindset of the universe, giving you an overview of various factions, their history, their interaction with each other. You got Hope Rekindled section right here. You got Gilliman with his helmet on. You got a map of the galaxy. The Dark Imperium. Continuing on. You got a lot of artwork in this book. A lot of text. Explains the concept of the Adeptus Astartes and their gene seeds. Some more Ultramarines. I think a part of the hatred is just because how ubiquitous the Ultramarines are. A lot of the major chapters and their basic color schemes, as well as the Ultramarines here with some various helmet patterns depending on the rank of the character, as well as their shoulder pauldrons with various other symbols for more rank identification and role identification. You got a little section on the Blood Angels and the Black Ray, talking about their unique curse. Dark Angels. The Space Wolves, which is the other faction I'm really interested in. The Grey Knights, which is another one, cool as hell. The Death Watch. And then you go into the Astra Militarum, the everyday Joe, fighting the radical, insane, impossible scenarios and surviving or dying, but still choking the battlefield with their bodies. a little more information on their tanks and stuff like that. You get into the Astro Adeptus Mechanicus and their fun tech and culture. You go into the knights. Hey, you want a gigantic ass knight that stands about yay tall, or that goes stompy through the field and does a ton of damage? You got yourself Titans. In Age of Sigmar, the equivalent to Titans is the Mega Gargants. Incidentally, that is like the fewest units you can ever get is the Titans and the Mega Gargants. Titans for 40k, Mega Gargants for Age of Sigmar. And you basically only have to paint like anywhere from like 2 to 5 units, depending on points. Stick them on the battlefield. That's my army. Screw you. Got big painting areas, big and simple, but expensive as heck. You got some more Ultramarine love. You got Gilliman right there. More of the other Marines. Got the Salamanders on the bottom. Got more Titan action. You got some beautiful flavor and color. You got some chaos, some Khorne or demons clashing up with the Adeptus Mechanicus. You got the Astra Militarum versus, my guess is those are the Night Lords. It does not state what faction that is, but my noob brain says those are the Night Lords in that image. Across the bottom right here. Which makes no sense, because in lore, well, game and lore are two different things. You have to remember that. You can't be entirely espionage and secret-y in a war game in which you have your units have to stand in front of other enemy units and fight them. You got a few more fun factions. You got the Sisters of Silence, the Adeptus Custodes. You got some Tyrannid crap, some Grey Knights, the Sororitas on the big page right over here. That's another faction I would love to start collecting into, but you know, the best decision you can ever make when it comes to this is like you have your primary faction. Those are your guys you start with, or change into some later on point. But you start with a faction. You've done your research to find a faction that jives with how you feel you want to play, and then also a faction that you would enjoy painting as well. And you go from there, and then you pick up a second faction as your alternate. So you have two factions, and then when you build those up, you find a third faction that you look like you will enjoy building up. And you just simply do as such until you hit like that happy level. But you're not always, you don't go about buying every single faction. Games Workshop would really love it if you did buy every single faction and every single model, but you just naturally want to find the factions that most best jive with your play style or the way you feel you want to play, as well as are most interesting to you for a combination of painting and lore. You want to have something that you are passionate and you enjoy playing with. Even you just paint it and you set it up on a shelf, and I love that. That's beautiful. You want to start from there. You want to start with a faction, maybe a second faction, and then you basically just kind of move around there. You figure out what you truly enjoy, and you might add a third or a fourth. And you don't go crazy. You don't buy every single faction, but you just buy the ones you enjoy, and then you keep adding. You got some Slaanesh fun here. more Death Guard and the Black Legion. 1,000 Suns, the Renegades. Chaos Unbound. Beautiful artwork. Magnus the Red. My God, for a guy that's supposedly that smart, he fucks up so hardcore. But of course, that is not unusual. Sometimes people overthink the shit out to the point where they actually undermine themselves. Got some Corn Demons and, yeah. Karn the Betrayer. Got some more fun. There's a lot of beautiful pictures in this book. A lot of lore that shows off a ton of stuff. Now we are getting into the Eldar, the Craft Worlds. The Craft World Eldari. They're different little factions. The Drukhari. The Harlequins and the Yunari. Two mini factions. The Yunari actually seem to be quite interesting. They worship a death god that becomes stronger every time a Eldar dies. And then you got the Necrons, which is the faction I chose for 9th edition. And the reason why I chose the Necrons is because they're skeletons. I like skeletons. They are also simple to paint, so they're a great starting point. You only have like 3 or 4 colors, but you can play with that, and you can add more details in as you get better. They are relatively cheap. They can revive constantly. Your enemy could take out like 3 or 4 of your member models in your unit. You roll for your regeneration or your reanimation protocol. He rolls 6s. A bunch of them pop back up. Hey! You think you made progress. I just picked up a bunch of the pieces you knocked down. Put them back up. They just march forward, relentlessly shooting and chopping away. It's a starter faction that comes in the Indomitus box, as well as the other starter boxes, as well as the last Christmas they had the Battle Force box. I picked that up. I really love their feel. I love the Egyptian death vibe. Advanced tech like all heck. The whole idea of just... You're old as shit. You don't like the fact that there's a bunch of young species on your lawn. Tell them to get the heck off kind of vibe. Then you got the orcs. The orcs are cool. The problem with the orcs is that they're a horde-esque faction with some elite components to it. The orcs, the term horde and elite. Elite is a few figures that cost a lot more points, but you can build a working army out of a few figures, so you have fewer models to build a good faction. And then a horde army is like you have a large number of models. You have to do a lot of painting. Orcs lean onto that horde side, but they have some elite options in them. Necrons are middle to... Yeah, they're middle. They're in the middle ground between elite and horde. You can horde them, and you can elite them, but they kind of, by the bulk, sit in the center. Orcs are wonderful because they are capable of just having a ton of fun, and they could just put all kinds of crazy things together, and it miraculously works because they believe it works. It's like modern human society. 40K is a horrifying parody of the world we live in, and it's funny. You got the Tau Empire, which is actually like the 4th or 5th faction I got really interested in. I've always kind of had a fascination with the idea of standing back and launching a ton of projectiles at my opponent. However, the Astra Militarum has better options for long-ranged units, like the Basilisk tank. The Tau have some pretty darn good options in that regard, but they're not the best options, but they are strongly focused on that range option. So it's like, I'm going to put a pin in the Tau. That is like something I'm going to consider down the road once I get really going. The Tyranids are a swarm that has some elite options in it. Other than that, I keep coming across people that say they are terrible. You got Gene Stealer cults. Yet again, they're clearly infected idiots. They must be purged. Of course, most organics need to be purged. You got various other alien menaces. More Eldar, Craft World art. Lots and lots. They make a strong point in these books to show you tons and tons of artwork of different factions. The Craft Worlds versus the Drukhari. Harlequins down here. You got the Necrons up top here. You got the Tau Empire down here. Both are awesome factions. I really do just love the aesthetic of the Necrons. There's something to be said about economy in design. Most teenagers, anime weeboos and stuff like that, like belt buckles, all the little pins and decorations, and they slap this on, and your character is wearing 3 or 4 cloaks. They got 5 swords on them, 3 or 4 guns, all kinds of stuff. There's something special about just a simple suit with really plain, simple hairstyle with a touch of detail here and there, like a pin with a flag or a star or a symbol on it. And maybe like a ring on a glove or something. Economy counts for something because absence of excess can also say something very deeply profound about a person. Usually people who try to ornately, obsessively decorate themselves are trying to be noticed because they have an internal... This is terrifying to say. They have a void inside themselves, and they feel that they have to be special in the universe. Which is terribly sad, and everyone is special, yet simultaneously not special at the same time. Oh, yeah. I was going to put my good microphone in. But anyways, my tip is don't give a crap about being special. Just find good people you enjoy to be around with. Find hobbies you enjoy, and enjoy those hobbies with good people. And enjoy your hobbies with a variety of people, not just people of your own belief system, but of other belief systems, and that grows the hobby, and it improves your understanding of diverse groups of thought and people. Okay, you got some more Tyranid love here. Tyranids are quite sad. You got some orcs. Tyranids are one of those cases where you got xenomorphs, wannabe xenomorphs that are knockoff wannabe xenomorphs. Eternity of War. You got a little warp artwork here. You're still going into like the Warzone Ultramar, which was a major point in 8th edition. And you just keep going. Marches of Plagues. Now we're starting to get into the slightly more current events of Warhammer 40k as far as 8th edition is concerned. The Fall of Cadia. You got the Astra Militarum here. The different major war zones going on. The Blood Crusade, Craft World of Aeneid. There is only war section. This gets into the different ways of play. We're now actually truly getting into actually playing Warhammer 40k 8th edition section here, but this also applies somewhat to 9th edition as well. You got playing the game. You got core rules. Tells you at page 176 for the core rules. Advanced rules is page 238. So this is the open play section. Open play, 188. Narrative play, which is basically the campaign. Matched play, battle forged armies. Basically, narrative play, match play is like a campaign or story mode where you take your army and you start at one point in their level abilities, and as you win battles, you modify various. They acquire various items, units drop and die, and so forth, and your army evolves as it goes along. Stargrave and Frostgrave have a very similar concept to them in base core, how they play as well. Instead, Stargrave and Frostgrave are less of a large-scale army kind of game, and more of a skirmish type of game where you have a small group of individuals, like a party of people that you hire, as well as the assistant and the wizard. I'll get into that when I get over to that. But if Warhammer is too many models for you, like you don't want to deal with like 20 to 200 models, Stargrave and Frostgrave are a good option. You only really need like 5 or 6 models for that, and some decorations for terrain and stuff like that. You got a section on the data sheet for Warhammer describing. This is pretty much same for 9th edition as well. If you pick up this book dirt cheap on eBay or Amazon, this is still pretty much applicable to 9th edition. There are some changes that occurred. This just gets you in the door dirt cheap. Gets you going dirt cheap. Here's the core rules section. This basically just goes through model and data sheet, units, tools of war, what you need, like your dice and your measuring devices and stuff like that. This is your battle round tracker right here. You can just write this down on a card when you're new. Battle of your various phases, your movement phase. It describes the basic rules of your movement phase. The 9th edition book is very much in the same vein. Wobbly model syndrome and a few other side details. You go on to the next section, the psychic phase. You have rerules, roll-offs, sequencing section right here. And then you have all the little details about the rules about how to read your movement, how to do your movement, and etc. You have your shooting phase right here. Each page is a phase. So it's not like people are thinking like, oh my god, there's all these phases and all this stuff. No. It is just enough information to fill a page. Remember that you got this nice ribbon. You could put in there, or put a bookmark in there. Like you're a completely new person. Most people in Warhammer community are like, oh, you're a new person. Okay, I'm going to allot you some opportunity. I will remind you your stuff here in your basic phases. It's impossible for all the players. There's so many factions in Warhammer 40k that you should not expect other people to know how your faction runs. But it is possible for them to understand, and they're, from what I've been told, a lot of people are willing to help guide you along the basic phases because they want more people to come into the hobby. People who are truly into the hobby truly want more people to come into the hobby because more people in the hobby is more opportunities to play. It's only the fake and really horrible people who try to scare people out of hobbies. But anyways, this is where I kind of made a liar out of myself. There's the shooting phase, and then it goes into another 2 pages describing weapon types and resolving. How to resolve your actions of your shooting phase. And then you go into your charge phase, which interestingly enough is only a single column right here, which offsets the extra 2 pages in the shooting phase. I'm sorry if I suddenly became a liar all of a sudden. Fight phase, which goes over to here from down this panel and then to the top of this section. And then you have the 6th phase, which is the morale phase, which you roll. You add your units that have dropped to your number, and if you overshoot it, you lose more units. You fail your roll, you lose. This is another set. They give earlier on in the book, and in this book, they give you examples of how the phases of play as an example. So we just went through a section in this book that describes the phases, and in this book they also do the same thing twice. They have described the basic instructions for the phases, more basic in that book, and then they have an example of play right here, which they also have in that Getting Started with Warhammer 40k book. So they have a diagram here of various units. This is the movement phase. They describe how far your characters can move. You can move up to a certain range based on your movement. Okay? And then you have your psychic phase, which means your psyker can roll. You can roll your 2d6s. Good thing I got 2d6s. Actually, no. Yay! I got 9. But anyways, two gigantic red dice. I got 3 gigantic red dice and like another dozen or so white dice. I have a cube of chess. I don't know where I put that. But anyways. Oh well. Oh wait, I know. Those are my Warhammer dice. Interestingly enough, a tip people have given as a tip, instead of using the pip dice, you use numbered dice because it's faster to read if you see a 2 instead of counting the dots. But anyways, these are actually nice. I got a review of those on my channel. But anyways, you got your psychic phase in description here. They show you an example. They explain, hey, this is the psychic power he uses. This is what he rolls. He's successful. This is the outcome. Then you got your shooting phase. Your shooter phase. So you shoot those guys. You roll your dice. Then you roll. Then they roll. And then outcome. And then you got your charge phase. You take your unit. They charge forward. Those 2 guys died. You charge. You actually come up. There you are. Gonna get stuck in. Then you got your fighting phase. You shift forward to meet your opponent's base. You roll for your attacks. You're successful, you fail, you know. You got your morale phase. You basically total up how many units you've lost. You roll your dice. You fail your morale, you succeed, you're good. It's 2 pages that pretty much cover the basic sequence of events in your turn. And then you repeat that out for all your units, and then boom, you're done. Kind of thing. Then you got a little section on fighting your battles. Only war section here. The armies, the battlefield, the primary objectives, the deployment, power level, first turn, battle length, victory conditions. You can have different conditions, like you need to be at a certain point for so much time to claim this target objective. You have to have more units than your opponent. You got it. You're good. The big gist, you know. You need to kill more opponents than your opponents kill you. Wipe your opponents off the field. Take out a big unit. Stuff like that. You got open play, which is just you guys having fun, smashing it out. War Without End, which is basically another way of them just saying narrative campaign or something along that line. Oh, actually, that's something else. There's narrative play right there. Sorry about that. Yet again, there's everywhere you go in this book and in the Warhammer books, there's tons of artwork. Narrative play mission rules. Crucible of War. Crucible of War Ambush. You got different setups of arrangement zones. Your deployment zones are different for different sides and factions. You got that setup. You got one faction that will set up in the red zone. You got another faction that sits up in the green zone. This is completely devoid of a faction. You guys move forward. There will either be various point objectives around the map for you guys to claim, or you just simply go ahead and clash it out and you win points based on types of units and values of units dropped and so forth. Got different maps for different scenarios. Some more big displays of action. You have a deployment map, but this time they've included terrain in the map. Notice that they've spread out most of the terrain so that you can actually easily move some units between the terrain, but you can still be blocked from sight by standing behind the terrain. Matched play. This book is quite meaty. I'm over choose armies, choose mission, standard deployment maps. These are all the different deployment maps. These are actually not all the deployment maps. Every year there is a book that comes out. It's sometimes generally called the General's Handbook or something along that line. It changes around every so often. That will have a bunch of those maps in it, as well as objectives for the current campaign season and so forth. Eternal War Retrieval Mission, Eternal War No Mercy, Eternal War Scourging, Eternal War Big Guns Never Tire, Eternal War Secure and Control, Eternal War The Relic. And it just keeps going and going and going. I'm not joking. Tactical objectives. You know, you secure this objective and you secure that objective. You earn up points for securing different grades of objectives. Primary, secondary, and so forth. Whoever gets the most points wins. So you can win by wiping your opponent off the field and just holding objectives, or you can win in by holding more objectives and making sure your opponent cannot hold more objectives than you, or better objectives with better score points than you. You got into the advanced rules section, which is delightful, describing different unit compositions, deployments. Warhammer 9th edition, 40k 9th edition has a slightly different, has some updates to that, and Age of Sigmar 2nd edition and 3rd edition have different set of deployment and unit setups. So each edition has its own little thing in adjusting what consists of a unit and a drop and so forth. So you want to reference those books to be absolutely certain of what you got to do for those editions and those game systems. I'm actually running out of time. This book is closing in on over 300 pages. You got aerial units, flyers. I think they did some rather important updates from 8th edition to 9th edition on flying rules. Multiplayer battles. So if you want to like have, say, like player A, player B, player C, and player D, you can do that. Warhammer is perfectly doable if you get enough tables together and arrange enough rules together to actually run it like that. You could probably have like 8 or 10 people playing Warhammer 40k on the same battlefield. You're just gonna have to like use multiple tables and like, oh yeah, if I walk this far to this edge of the map, I go on to this next map. You guys can like homebrew all kinds of crazy mega battles out of Warhammer 40k. In fact, I just like literally just said mega battles. That's not even a thing in this book or even in 9th edition, but like mega battles are mega fun kind of concept. You know, you have like 4 or 5 tables, not 4 or not 5. That's an odd number. So like 4 or 6 tables, and you just simply designate a line on the table. This table goes to this table, goes to this table. And then you move your army around in your turn. Next person has their turn. They move their army around. Everyone's doing their things. They move from one table to another, like teleporting, because they cross over a line. They go to another table, and so forth. And you can have like epic battles that way. And that sounds like such an awesome idea, and I just literally thought of it right now, but I'm quite sure that people have done that in the past. So as with this, all my Warhammer videos, I'm not going to do any review scores because as far as play and assembling of models, I'm a noob. I've been following Warhammer lore for some time now, and I've painted stuff in the past, so I'm halfway there. It's just like getting into Warhammer, playing, getting experience. So there you go. This book is the previous edition. This is still neat to have. It's useful for lore stuff from like the last edition. You get a few extra maps out of this. It's for some fun stuff. Get to see the mechanics that other factions that have yet to get their 9th edition books and stuff like that have to build off of, because it takes time for Games Workshop to release all the codexes to update all the armies to 9th edition. So getting the 8th edition books are like, yeah, you can get the 8th edition books. The current one is 9th edition, transitioning away from 8th. But oh my goodness, gas. But anyways, that's it. That's all. This is just, you probably can pick up a lot of these 8th edition books cheap because people are moving away if you really want to just check out stuff. But the new thing is 9th edition, and 9th edition is the thing, and you probably want to check into if you're really serious. Also, before buying books, I definitely suggest yet again to subscribe to other Warhammer 40k or Age of Sigmar channels, just so you can eat up on lore and mechanics, and identify your your 1 to 3 factions that you want to play in what system. Okay? Because once you get your like, oh yeah, I definitely want to play this one. This one looks really interesting. I'm really close to wanting to get this one. And this one is a possible third. That sounds awesome. You get into this one. If you enjoy it, you do. You don't, In that case, you have a second one. You can move from this one to that one. You can keep this one as your active unit, or as the one you started with. You can move on to your second one. From doing this, you figure out I'm okay with this one, but I really like this one. What other factions are like this one? And you research, think about it, and you do as such. And you just build up on those, and you maybe find like a third one you transition into, and so forth. Thank you very much for watching. This is a super long video, and have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time.